please. EU officials say significant gaps remain in trying to reach a post-Brexit trade deal. There are three main sticking points getting in the way of an agreement: fair competition guarantees, how to settle future disputes, and fishing rights. EU negotiators say both sides have failed to bridge the gaps on those issues, but both sides insist the other needs to compromise. Sources from inside the talks currently taking place in London say the next 24 to 48 hours are crucial when trying to reach a deal. Well, from on this, let's bring in our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's standing by for us in Brussels. Good to see you there, Darren. What sort of deal is achievable for both the leaders of the EU and the UK to take back to their citizens and say that their side had won?
Well, I think like many deals, Oliver, it all comes down to compromise, doesn't it, in the end? And, it's come down to kind of two of the fundamental key issues in Brexit. This idea of competition rules and the so-called level playing field, a sense that Europe wants Britain, in essence, to a degree, to be tied to its rules and regulations when it comes to things like trade or when it comes to food and agriculture. That's important for the European Union because essentially what they don't want is Britain to be a major competitor on its doorstep, given the size of its economy and indeed its physical proximity to the continent of Europe. For Britain, though, on the other hand, they want to lever enough or get away enough that Brexit, in essence, is worth it, that they can unshackle themselves, as Brexiteers would argue, from the European Union's rules and regulations enough that they can try and make a success, become more competitive in the world to their economic advantage. Then it comes to this issue of fish. Again, another totemic issue in many ways for Brexit. Brexit was all about taking back control of borders, but also control of its fishing waters as well. And Britain wants essentially to be able to fish those waters and to catch those fish and sell them to different parts of the world as it wants it. It doesn't want other EU boats in there as well. Now, it's going to have to compromise because it does accept that in order to be able to sell fish to the European Union, it's going to have to allow some European vessels in its fishing waters. And as I say, for the European Union, that compromise comes by accepting that it's not going to have the unfettered access that essentially it has at the moment. So those are the kind of compromises, trying to gel them together. But the detail, of course, is important. It's why people say there are still these major significant gaps, because, to use the old cliche, nothing's agreed until everything is agreed when it comes to Brexit. But be in no doubt, we're about 95, 99% of the way there. It's going to be a bulky document, this trade deal. But in the end, it is almost there. And in the end, I think to answer your question, what will both sides want from this? They really do essentially want a deal. Neither side can afford no deal. It would be another devastating blow to already depressed economies. And it would be a victory, both for Brussels and London, if they just managed to get a deal in the end.
So let's imagine that we're going to get this deal. It's all ratified by the end of the year. Pray tell, is that it? It's all done and dusted? Or are we still going to be talking about Brexit well into the new year?
Well, you know what, Brexit, I've always said this year for years, it's kind of like a carousel, seemingly the same issues and arguments, talks, crunch talks, last-minute talks, ditch talks. We seem to be saying this for months and months and months on end. We are, though, getting to the moment where there is going to have to be a deal or no deal. It can't really carry on for much longer. Is it the end of the road? Well, it'll have to be ratified, of course, by EU leaders, possibly as early as next week when they meet here in Brussels. It'll also have to be ratified by the Parliament. Potentially that might have to be provisionally at first. It may be in the new year. Are we going to stop talking about Brexit, though? In reality, no. Yes, in theory, it will finally end if there is a deal on the 31st of December this month. But the relationship, the ongoing relationship, the complex relationship, economically and politically, between the United Kingdom and the European Union is going to be one that, is pretty tense for many, many years to come. And there's going to be kind of to-ing and fro-ing. So, no, in essence, Brexit will not come to an end. And one man who, I don't know whether he's delighted with that or not, is Billy Kelleher. He's an Irish MEP with the Renew Group and joins me from inside the European Parliament. As I say, Billy, we have seemed to be talking about Brexit forever. we are kind of hopefully coming to the end game. You've been talking to the Irish Prime Minister, the Taoiseach Micheál Martin, today. You've got your ear to the ground. What's your sense of where we're at in terms of these negotiations? Are we, as Simon Coveney suggested, the Irish Foreign Minister, potentially going to see a deal within the next 48 hours or so?
Well, it's the moment of truth, being honest. I mean, the next number of hours and days will be crucial. It will indicate whether or not these negotiations that have been ongoing for some time were really being conducted in good faith. I mean, the spirit of negotiation is that at the end of the day, all sides should be able to leave the negotiating table feeling that they have achieved something. It's not an outright victory for one side or the other. Bear in mind, a no-deal scenario could have a catastrophic effect on economies right across the globe. It could have a catastrophic effect on the UK economy. It could undermine the European Union as well, and it would very much damage the island of Ireland and the all-island economy. So there's too much at stake, I believe, for sensible political leaders, both in the UK and the European Union, to allow a no-deal scenario come to fruition. So, as I said, it is the moment of truth, but I would be very hopeful that, the three key issues that have been outlined for some time, the issue of state aid, governance and fisheries, they have been there for some time. So I would be confident that a lot of the technical work would have been put through over the last number of weeks and months, and that finally we can just make that political leap to allow a negotiated agreement that everybody can live with, bearing in mind a no-deal scenario, as it would have profound implications for many citizens, for jobs and livelihoods and economies.
But just on that issue of fishing, we all know it's not a big part of either Britain or indeed the European Union's economy. Surely this whole deal can fall apart because, some French and Belgian fishermen aren't happy. That would be disastrous. Don't they have to recognise that there's a bigger part to play than simply fishing?
Yes, but it's not just French fishermen or UK fishermen. I mean, the point is political leaders are elected to try and lead. So what we need now from our collective political leadership is to encourage and cajole those that may have alternative views, and look at it from a very vested self-interest point of view. We need a broader picture, so we have to move beyond trying to isolate a country that may have concerns about fishing or some other issue with regard to the overall deal. So clearly, fishing was a totemic pole for the UK. It very much sort of indicated they taking back control, encouraging control over UK waters, that harping back to Britannica. So I certainly believe that we have to move beyond that, and other countries that have concerns about fishing as well have to accept that in a spirit of negotiations we will need to compromise on both sides to ensure that we have access to UK waters and that the UK has access to the European market, not only in the context of they selling fish, but the energy market and many other areas where the UK will need the European Union and to be able to access the large market that is on its doorstep.
Well, we've heard lots of suggestions in the last couple of days that there have been kind of the hardliners within certain governments, most notably in Paris, and indeed in Denmark, suggesting that they should go for no deal and restart all this next year. I assume that countries like Ireland, like your government, have been arguing the other toss, that essentially, we need to compromise more because we need this deal. Ireland needs this deal.
Well, look, the UK is the fifth largest economy in the world. It's a very sophisticated economy. There's 60 million people living there. So it is profoundly important that we can trade on the 1st of January 2021. We simply can't have a situation whereby a country that size, an economy that size, will be cut off the European Union and vice versa. So I don't believe that we should be, now saying that we must play hardball right to the end. Hardball has been played. What we need now to do is the negotiators to sit down and just finally trash out those last few issues that will allow a trade deal. Bearing in mind, fishing to one community is critically important. To other communities, it could be another issue. So I don't think we should just identify and specifically pick out one particular area. What we need now is for all the issues to be resolved, and I'm quite definite that the technical work has been done, and countries at this stage should not be trying to introduce other issues to undermine the concept of a deal. Europe has worked in solidarity. They have been very supportive of Ireland. Ireland has been very supportive of the EU strategy of negotiating through Michel Barnier, and what we want to do now is for David Frost on the UK side, Michel Barnier on the European Union side, and the political leaders to finally accept that a deal must be done in the interests of everybody. And from an Irish point of view, it is critically and profoundly important that we have that deal.
So, Billy, just finally on this, though, you're an MEP. You're going to have to vote on this deal. Is it your understanding, quickly if you can, that it's possible that this might be provisionally agreed to and you might not actually properly ratify it until the new year?
Well, that is a distinct possibility. Obviously, there's no legal way that we can delay a deal. So, I mean, if there is, it will have to be ratified in some way, but you could delay that process. But bearing in mind with remote voting and everything else, it is quite possible that we can use the ingenuity of the European Parliament and the other European institutions, that if a deal is done, it can be ratified by the Council, it can be supported through the political process, and that the Parliament would have its final say. And I'm quite confident that they could do that, even working through the Christmas period, bearing in mind, we have been years negotiating it. It would be a shame for a few days to undermine and unravel the concept of what we're trying to achieve, which is ensuring a deal for the European citizens, be they UK citizens or European citizens. We're all European at the end of the day.
OK, Billy Kelleher from the European Parliament studio here in Brussels. Thank you very much indeed. Those talks are continuing. They went on to 1 a.m. last night, Oliver. Lots of pizza deliveries. Clearly, they're doing quite well out of this Brexit process, as is the Eurostar, with officials darting back and forth. An extra consignment of EU officials travelled to London today. But we are at the moment where I suspect, potentially as early as tomorrow, but into the weekend, we may well see a deal done. But of course, and we always have to remember, this is a political process at the end of the day. There is always the possibility it could fall apart at the last moment. But if there is one, there is an expectation that it will be signed in person by Boris Johnson and Ursula von der Leyen.
And you'll be keeping a tough eye across all of that. Thank you very much, Darren, joining us today from